Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Ease 7, all bosses, nightmare difficulty, no damage. At the beginning here guys, we're going to do a little bit of a preamble. I'm going to talk about some things you're going to see in the videos, because this is going to be thick and fast and coming at you full force, and I might not have time to talk about all the nuance that you're going to watch here. So, a couple of bases to cover. In this game, you have the ability to flash guard. It was the first, I believe, in the series to use this mechanic, and it simply means that when an enemy is about to attack you, or an attack is about to touch your body, if you press the guard button and you time it just right, you will neutralize the damage of that guard. It will stop you from taking damage in the frame that you activate it, and it will give you a little bit of SP and a little bit of extra gauge. You're going to see me doing that a lot in this, because the second benefit is, for a short period afterwards, it will turn your attacks into critical hits, which is really useful for dealing damage. Additionally, you can dodge roll. The dodge roll in this game does not seem to have any kind of iframes. It is not for dodging through attacks, it's for spacing and getting away from them. So there is the option in this game to completely avoid moves and completely get away from them rather than going through them like you would in something like a Devil May Cry. And that's an option too that you will be seeing here, because it's not all going to be guarding, so look out for that. But a couple of the more technical things you might notice. The first thing is, if you guard an active move, you can then proceed to spam the guard button repeatedly as fast as you physically can do. There is no trigger stop on it, it will go as fast as you can do it. And you will repeatedly build SP and build extra gauge, and if you're really fast, you will build a considerable amount of it. You're going to see me doing that technique a lot, enabling myself to stay alive, because not only am I keeping the invincibility, but I'm building up my repertoire to fight back. If you have a turbo controller, you can do absolutely preposterously ridiculous things, because there's no real limit to it. It's kind of nuts. I don't, unfortunately, and I have my guard mapped to a trigger, so you can't really press a trigger very fast. You can press it kind of fast, but you can't press it the same way you could a button, which is one of the downsides to my control scheme. The next thing to talk about is, fundamentally, I've tried to be a decent level for the bosses. I haven't tried to be under-leveled, I haven't tried to be over-leveled on outside of two examples, I think. One of them is the bird in the Wind Temple. I just could not do enough damage to that bird to make the fight something that I felt like was going to be a viable fight that I was going to enjoy. So I ended up getting like 10 levels against that boss, which is ridiculous in the grand scheme of things, but you wouldn't think I was that high level if you watch the fight, because it still takes forever. And then the second instance was there is an octopus that absolutely kicked my ass as well. The octopus is essentially just a bullet hell boss, and it just doesn't die, man. The one thing that I'm trying not to avoid in this run, but it's something I've felt about Ease in every game I've played. I love Nightmare difficulty, and I love Inferno difficulty, but I hate how much life the bosses have. I just don't think you should ever have to hit a boss as many times as you have to hit them in these games. And that's just a personal thing, guys. It's a design choice, they deliberately make them this way. It's just not my favourite thing, and it's my least favourite thing about Ease, so it's one of the areas I try to circumvent when I can. But in this game, fundamentally, I feel like the bosses were pretty fun. Especially the bigger bosses with the developed patterns, they were really, really fun. I liked their movesets. Once again, I'm not a big fan of hitting things 500 times and feeling really weak when I'm trying everything I can to be strong, and it's just one of those things that can really get you down. But without further ado, guys, let's go through this, let's kick some ass, and hopefully you can enjoy some more Ease content. Okay, folks, first boss of the game. He's called Val Kilmer. He's not called that, but that's what I call him. He is the introductory boss that's very reminiscent of... there is a turtle in Ease 8. This guy is obviously somebody that inspired that boss, because it's a later game. He's called Val Kilmer, and he's going to introduce you to the concept of hitting things a lot. So I start off immediately by controlling Adol. I'm going to spam guard against the icicles, and I'm going to dodge to the right at the end of it. If you dodge too soon there, you will take damage from the active hitbox, but if you don't dodge at all, you won't get that advantageous position that I was in. Whenever you stand in front of Val Kilmer, he'll try to hit you with his head in various means. Whenever he glows like that, it means he's going to spin around, and he's going to release these purple projectiles. All of these moves that he's doing that I'm dodging can be guarded against, but I didn't feel like guarding these moves gave you any kind of position of power, so I chose to dodge them instead. And all I'm doing is building SP with standard attacks, and then I'm going to hit him with the special move that I have, which is mapped to B right now. Whenever you stun bosses in E7, they take increased damage, so it is the best time to use your extra attack, but because of this boss as an introduction, I don't have that. And here is the rush mechanic. Bosses will go into a rush state, which will give you a time limit to stun them, and if you don't stun them, they'll hit you with a big move. Luckily with this boss, if you hug that top left corner like I did just then, it seems to, not always, it seems to give you a pattern where it doesn't hit up there. I have been hit there before, but in this particular run I managed to avoid all damage thankfully because I got the good RNG. But the head sweep there, that is an active hit as well. You have to smash guard through that or you will not live. You will trade with the boss. And of course you'll live because the damage threshold on this game is actually pretty low compared to other games on Inferno and Nightmare. But when you're doing no damage it doesn't really matter. And these bubbles, you have to mash guard on the bubbles because they have an after effect. And if you don't, you'll trade damage and you'll take a hit. But here is the head sweep again. Once again folks, you can guard a lot of these, and something worth noting, there's a trick that I found on the final boss that I didn't know throughout the game which would have really helped me. And you can slash cancel a perfect guard into another guard. And all you do is you press guard, then you attack, and then you guard just after the attack has landed. And it enables Adol to stay invincible while swinging his sword once. So you can guard, attack, guard, attack, guard, attack, guard, attack, and you can do damage on an active hitbox. And it's really, really, really good, but it's actually quite particular in how you time it, so you have to be careful. And then here we have the second boss. This is a creature that becomes a standard enemy in the run, and he has it's a bit of a lame boss. It's a boss that only has about 4 moves. It doesn't look very impressive, but all of these moves can be a pain in the ass if you're not careful. His most dangerous move is probably his lunging move, but if you delay your guard, you can guard each part of it, and it looks really cool. It looks like a third strike parry, but I'm not sure if you're going to see that in this run. So I stun him, I use the Lunar Blade to smack on him. Here's his spinning move. If you stay in front of him like I'm doing and you get a good pattern, he'll continually try to spin you. If he does anything else, it can be a little bit more awkward, but it's signified by the glowing, and you have to guard a little bit earlier than you want to, because the attack becomes active immediately. So you'll notice I completely stop attacking, and then I go immediately to the guard. But there he goes. He looks easy because he kind of is. And then you have this thing. This is really difficult, guys. This is a super tough boss. And it's a super tough boss for a few reasons. Not only does it has this move that is almost impossible to dodge with how quick it is, and if you're in a bad perspective, you can't even see how you're supposed to dodge it. It releases its tongue, and it fires 3 green blobs, and the green blobs are tridently spaced, so it's a blob space, blob space, blob space. And he fires a bunch of those at you while reaching his tongue out, and it's so fast that if you're too close to it and you don't guard it, it'll hit you every time. But the strategy here is really simple, but the execution is tough. You break his legs, all 6 of his legs, you stun him, it releases his weak point. You hit his weak point, he reels it back in, you repeat ad nauseum. I found that if you use the move that I'm spamming right now, you can hit all 3 legs at once, and you can have a really, really quick way of taking him down. Here's his rush. Wait for it and then parry it. Do not stop parrying this, guys, because he'll trap you against the wall like he's doing right now. I can't move. There's nothing I can do right there. And then this is the move. This is it. See this move? That move is really difficult to react to when you're close and you can't see where you are. Very tough, guys. But one of the reasons this boss is so challenging is that he moves faster on PC. Certain moves and certain tick rates for damage and health steal are much faster. I was watching a speedrunner mentioning that certain aspects of this boss have been sped up because of the 60 frames per second, and I think there's only 2 bosses in the game that this really affects. It's this guy and it's the bird, and both of these bosses gave me a massive problem because it was really hard to do what you just witnessed, guys. It looks easy, doesn't it? It looks like I did it in 2 minutes, but I was against him for maybe an hour and a half, and he was really beating me up. But if you have difficulties on that boss, I can completely understand why. As opposed to this guy, you won't have any problems. So at the beginning, I like to guard the initial move, and then from there, after you've guarded this move, you can hit him in the back and you can stun him. If you use that running slash that I have mapped to X, it will put the boss in a stun state, and then from there you can combo back into that move and you can keep him completely stun locked till you run out of XP. It's really bizarre how you can stun lock bosses in this game, but it's really funny. Traditionally, the game seems to want you to wait for him to do his spinning move and fall down, and then you can exploit him when he falls down, but you can also get it off the ground pound, and that's exactly what I did. So we build stun, we get the stun, we use the extra attack, and I'm just going to bait him to that wall again, get the guard and then stun him, couple attacks, stun, and then if you can launch him like I'm doing right now, you can keep him in the air and you don't have to do the running attacks. Only do the running attack when he's on the floor to get the stun again, and if your AI cooperates right now, you can keep this boss indefinitely floating and there's nothing he can do. And once again, this is a creature that's going to turn into a normal enemy because he's not really much of a boss. He only has about 4 moves, he's incredibly simple. He just has a lot of HP, which is why I'm smacking him repeatedly at length. Here he comes. The trickiest move he has is his 3 hits into the ground, but if you stand close to him and you're good at guarding, you can guard all 3 of them, and it looks really impressive, but I didn't get a chance to showcase it. And then we have this thing. This thing is weird. It's a normal enemy again that's been turned into a mini-boss, and whenever it does its rushing attack, if you attack it after the rushing attack, you knock it down and you can juggle it, like I was juggling the boss. But if it doesn't give you the attack, it doesn't work, so you have to get the right move. And I think this... No, that's the Peck. He does the triple Peck that has the residual meteors. What's he doing? He's doing the tail slam thing that releases the projectiles. You can parry those as well. And then we get a stun on him, so we're just going to go in with the attacks. If you're thinking about the best way to build SP in this game, it's to constantly be charging the charge attack, which in this game does not charge automatically, so you have to be holding it yourself, which is kind of interesting. And then here he does with his tail move again. Every time he does that, you can get 3 hits on him, and then you can parry it when it releases his body. That has a ground shockwave, be careful of that. Always interesting to see those kind of shockwave moves. This game has a fetish for stunning you, but not doing damage, and then making you completely vulnerable with very little for you to do. It's something that Ys 8 also has, but it doesn't have it anywhere near as much as this game. This is it, this is what you want. See that move there? After you hit him, you knock him in the air. You can make this boss, well, you can't really make him, it's up to him, but if this boss does that move at the beginning, you can keep this guy permanently juggled, there's nothing he can do. And then afterwards, you kind of have to let him out of it if you stun him. Stunning him here is actually a problem because it takes him out of the loop. But once again, stunning does more damage, so it speeds up the fight. And this was just an unfortunate pattern. But one of the things I really love about this game, because if you've never played this and you're coming from Ys 8, there's no flash move in this game, which is unfortunate. And also, when you flash guard, you get no invincibility. You only get invincibility for the guard itself, and then immediately afterwards you're completely vulnerable, and it leads to these moments of just, why the hell did I trade with that attack when I perfectly parried it? And it takes a little getting used to, but once you do, it feels fine. And my solution to it was mash guard, and then dodge out of the guard, and it works really well, and funnily enough, by doing that in this game for the full duration, I'm now playing Ys Memories of Celceta, and it's enabling me to both stack Flash Guard and Flash Move in that game, because that's what it does in that game. So that game feels almost too easy now, because I have all these tools that I learned by playing this. But keep him in the air. You'll notice Dogi's playable in this game. I think this might be one of the only games where he is. He does kind of look like Lurch, which is unfortunate. He does look potentially disabled and very strong. It looks like he might kill a puppy in a Steinbeck novel, or a rabbit, which I should have said, because it's not a puppy, is he? And that's the end of the boss. And we level up off him, which is always nice. You get that nice cinematic slow motion. Mustafa, who's in our team there, he's a really cool character for damage. And then this is it, guys, this is the big boy boss. This boss is hard. If you've ever played one of the Touhou games, I don't know how you pronounce that, but they're bullet hell games, Japanese doujin games. If you've ever played cave shooters, you'll be at home here. This is all about dodging projectiles, environmental awareness, reflex, and understanding where their safe spaces are and where they're not. This boss is tough as hell because he has so many active moves. But one thing I noticed that you're seeing me exploit here, this move where he claps, he can't hit you if you hug his belly. And then if you move to the side of where his ribs are, he can't hit you with the follow-up either. So this swipe can hit you, so you have to block that, but sometimes it misses. But if you watch, there's him telegraphing, but then he got stunned. So this is when you want to use your extra move, by the way. You want to use it just at the end of this, when he's stunned, but I didn't use it. Wow. No idea why I didn't use that, guys, I couldn't tell you. You can parry that move, by the way. If you stand in front of him, you can parry the full thing. Here's the flamethrower. This is another one that gives you an opportunity to get your extra back by mashing the guard. And then if you roll out of this, you can run to the side and beat up on his ribs. But I'm not going to do it because I want to play really safe because this boss is hard. Here's his hands. So in this corner, you are like 95% safe, but there is a chance you can trade with one of those projectiles, so if it's coming directly for you, guard it. You can also sit in the northeast corner if you want to, but I found that the northeast counter was a little bit more difficult to see. That reminds me of both Cherry Blossom and of Imperishable Night, that move. But this move here, see what I did? Stood in front of him, he can't hit you with the clap, and then if you move to the side, he can't hit you with the AoE. And it's really good at doing massive damage all the time. And then he gets the rush meter, 5 seconds to stun him. We get the stun, and I should finish him off now with the extra move. I have no idea, guys, why I'm not doing the extra move. Do I not realise that I've got it? What am I doing? Does it not do enough damage? Oh, that's probably why. Oh, yeah, I forget that it does no damage. That's why I'm not using it, lol. Early on in the game, you don't do much damage with your extra move. But look at this. This is his ultimate fuck you move, but all it does is give me complete invincibility, and I get all that SP from blocking it. But it must be said, guys, blocking that laser in the end of the fight when you're all nervous can be a bit of a chokeable moment. You're going to see lots of chokes on the final boss, so if you like to see Chris choke, whew, I have a video full of that. I'm practically asphyxiating. But here's another one of the dumb bosses. This is a boss that's essentially an enemy type later on. I don't really understand this fight. There's times when he hunkers down like that, and he releases bubbles, and then there's times when he doesn't. I have no idea why he's not releasing bubbles. But all I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to run away from him. I'm not going to guard any of his moves. I'm going to just use 1000% spacing. So for the people who don't like guarding, this is the perfect boss because it enables you to practice your movement. Couple of things to bear in mind here, guys. Movement-wise in this game, I think Aisha, the girl who's in my team right now, I think she has the fastest movement. So, rolling in this game, if you spam roll, you do move quickly, but if you press roll with correct timing just as you come out of the recovery for it, you roll much faster. Because charge attacks in this game aren't automatically charged, you're going to have to hold a button a lot. So what I like to do is, while I'm holding the charge move, because I have my attack on square, or on X if you're using an Xbox controller, and then I use my index finger to claw and tap B, which is my roll button. So when you see me charging right now and rolling away, all I'm doing is holding X and tapping B with my other finger. And it's how I play this game. I claw a lot in this game. I didn't do that in Ys 8 because I didn't have to, but in this game it's very useful, especially later on when you're going to need that SP. Another thing that makes this boss really easy, other than the fact it's only got like 4 moves and it doesn't really deserve to be a boss, is that if it goes after your team, which it does a lot, you get free hits on it. And unfortunately your team's not quite clever enough to realise that going in's maybe not the smart move. But if you want to practice this enemy later on, there is an environment where there's a bunch of them. So if you're interested in learning to block all his moves, if you're the type of player that likes to block everything and stay super aggressive, you can totally do that. And I'm always I'm in a strange position sometimes when I'm making videos such as this, because there's a part of me that wants to be super aggressive and show you, really high-octane, insane guard fights, but then there's a part of me that wants these to be strategies that people can use to win, and if all I'm doing is relying on my reflexes and my timing to parry all the moves and make it look effortless, it doesn't really help, does it? But this isn't technically a walkthrough, so I think it's okay if I have a couple of moments where it's just me showing off, even though I don't think this is the most difficult Ys game. I think Ys 8 was a lot more difficult than this game, personally. But I think the reason for that is, in Ys 8, there's so many different challenges that I had problems with, whereas in this game, the only difficult thing that really bugged me was the enemy's HP, and was all the active hitboxes and the fact that flash guarding doesn't work as good. Because flash guarding is tighter, I think this game feels more difficult, but I just don't think it is. Like, when I was in the middle of it and I was struggling and I was having a tough time, I thought it was tough, but like looking back on it, appraising it afterwards, it's a challenge, don't get me wrong, but like I still think that 8 is tougher than this one. Even though in 8 you can be far more capable because the invincibility in that game is so crazy. But that should be the end of the crab. Pretty shitty boss, but he made me laugh when I saw him. And it's nice to have an easy boss because some of the other ones are really hard. And then we have the Gaius fight. So Gaius is from an older game, but I'm not going to say too much about that just in case you don't know. And he wants to fight you to see how you are skillfully, but this is a fight where if you lose you can't try again, because it's a fight that you can lose and it has a repercussion. So if you want to beat this guy, you don't have to. You want to put a safety save before it begins so you can repeat it, and the NPC fights in Ys games, are always kind of fun but kind of shit. because the programming on NPCs, all they do is run at you. They spend the entire fight chasing you down, and depending on how fast they are can depend on how much of a pain in the arse it is, because when you go into attack, they'll just trade with you a lot. There's a boss at the end, before the final boss gauntlet, who is an NPC fight like this, and that guy is so fast, you spend the entire time either running away from him or parrying everything he does, because it's all you can really do. He just attacks really quickly, and it leads to annoying moments. So the strategy that I developed is to wait for them to whiff their combo and then punish them. With this guy in particular, you can parry the 4th hit of his combo and then use the extra damage to do this fight a bit quicker. But it didn't seem to speed anything up, so the only stuff you're going to see me parry is when he fires the projectile at me. That's it. And I'm hitting him with Earthshaker, Strength Blast, sorry, because it's one of the moves that's really fast, and it also increases stun quite well. But one thing you'll notice on Nightmare is that stunning enemies just doesn't really happen. Outside of a couple of instances later on, you will almost never stun a boss outside of hitting it 1,000,000 times, so stunning never feels like a valid strategy in my opinion. Like against the bird, I think we're going to stun it, but that's just because that fight's long and I hit it a lot. And then at the end, you have to stun the final boss to do damage to it, so outside of those instances, stun is not the tool you want it to be. I really wish it was better, but it just isn't. And there you go, there goes Gaius. And then this is it, guys. This boss is incredibly difficult. This boss took me, I think, about... I don't even know how long this took, maybe 3 hours. It was long, it took a long time. The thing with him is, the reason why this is so much more difficult than the PSP version, for what I'm to understand, I don't know if this is completely accurate, and I don't know how much more there is to this, but fundamentally, on the PC version, because of the higher frame rate, the bird will fly far more frequently than it normally should. So, traditionally this boss should stay on the ground a lot, and then it should fly and do something, and then stay on the ground a lot, and then fly and do something. In the PC version, the moment it lands, it already stands back up, and it flies again. It just repeatedly flies and flies and flies and flies. And each one of these moves that it's doing right now, when it powers up and it gets all gold like it is right now on fire, each of these moves is different. It has 2 versions of each of its moves, and it has about 7 moves. You're looking at a boss that any given time can drop like 14 moves on you in the course of one fight, which I think is fascinating and awesome. But then when you give it 40,000 HP or however much life it had, it leads to some insanity. The only thing I don't want in this fight is the scream. It does a scream that freezes you, and you can't move, and anything it does after that, you just have to eat sometimes, which is a really scary moment. But the strategy is kind of simple again. I'm going to guard and evade the things I know, and I'm going to do as much damage as I can safely, while avoiding active lingering hitboxes and projectiles and spins. He does 2 of these in the second phase, punish the second one. And then he postures up and hits the ground, and this is the tornado. So, in this part, this is where the RNG begins. So when the tornado happens, you can spam guard to stay invincible, and you can build your extra move, which is really, really convenient and nice. The problem is, we don't know what the boss will do. The boss can do anything now, and if he does the wrong move, when we come out of this, we will be hit immediately with an unavoidable attack. So what I like to do is I like to smash this button as hard as I can, and I like to use the extra move to come out of this animation to give me iframes, and that's exactly what I did. Luckily, if I didn't have the extra move then, the boss was being kind and it wasn't doing another move, so it wasn't going to do a meaty on me, it wasn't going to do some crazy okizemi, and then now he starts spawning buddies, but I'm going to ignore them, because whenever he spawns the buddies, it means he's going to rush, and when he rushes, you need to stop the move. It's really important that you stop it. And he's going to come down and hit the middle of the platform, and this is when you have to hit him. So make sure you've got SP, hit him with everything you've got, and then when he's stunned, that's when you should really be using your extra move, because you can probably kill him. But a word of warning, you see these shitty chick things? They can hurt you. They can attack you through the boss, so they can damage you effortlessly. And everything the boss does is a nightmare. This move right now is really, really good because it's easy to dodge and it doesn't have any bullshit. Whenever the boss does that flying rush move, there it was, see that? This is a scary moment. If I was in a bad position just then, I've lost. Everything you've just witnessed is wasted because I cannot get out of the petrification fast enough to stop taking a hit. I got really lucky then, guys. God, this fucking boss is a nightmare. And do you notice what level I am? I'm level 38. I got in this dungeon at level 28, I think. Or I think I got to this boss at level 28. I got all those levels, and it didn't make a fucking difference. It didn't make a single difference. Ys is so bizarre. But do you see right now? He's doing the double spin move while I'm in an active animation. After the second spin, he's going to stop, and I'm going to be okay to come out of this without taking damage. But I don't know when the fire tornado is going to dissipate. If it doesn't dissipate, I'll take damage from the tornado unless I guard it. So he puts me in this awful setup, this guard setup, and I can't control this next part. But boom, that's how I get out of it. I do that just to make sure. It's a waste of an extra move, but I've almost won. And this is the move that's sometimes really difficult to dodge. Because of the environment, because of how far he goes, he can hit you from that almost all the time. It's really bullshit. And then here's his fireballs that lock on, but you can run away from those. You don't have to parry them. And then this should be the kill. Guys, I can't even tell you how hard that is. That fight on this version, on Nightmare, not using items, taking no damage, is harder than some of the fights I've done in a lot of the guides I've made. And then this is just as fucking annoying too. So, it's from bad to worse. You'll notice I'm using Aisha for this one, and I'm only 2 levels higher than I was in the previous level. Doesn't really matter. This is a really tough boss. And it's just because of his life. I want to make this known, guys. This fight is awesome. I love the patterns. I love the bullet hell. I love the challenge. I love all the creativity. I hate the fact this motherfucker has 40,000 life. Cut this dude's life in half and this boss is perfect. But as it stands, smack this dude 50 minutes and still lose is what it is. But you're not really going to get the full impression of just how difficult this can be, because this is a particularly good run. So, one of the big problems that Ys has, that I think it's inherited from this fixed perspective, is there are times when its projectiles are really difficult to judge the distance on them, and to judge the depth. In Ys 8, the worst fights in that game were games where you had to judge the depth of a projectile that you couldn't fucking see. And it was really annoying, and this fight is vintage garbage for that. I can't even begin to tell you all the stuff that can go wrong in this, but the gist of what I'm doing is, do you see that little like Celebi thing that's flown out of that tentacle and gone inside the big octopus? That's the boss. Whenever you beat on these tentacles and on this face, it releases that little thing, and that little thing is what you want to hurt. Not only does the little thing take massive damage, but you can do some really cool setups, and this is where things get bullshit. This gravity ball that it does right now is so much garbage. I hate that move. If you stay at the bottom of the screen, near the sides, he generally doesn't do it in the middle like it did just then. But this boss can stack 2 of those balls on the surface at the same time, and then all of the tentacles and the head can attack you while those balls are on the screen. And if you're blocking them, you're in a block for the next minute, and there's almost nothing you can do to get out of it safely. I can't even begin to tell you how awful that fight is when it comes to like not taking damage, but it's an amazing fight for everything else. And then there's this piece of shit. This is amazing. This is a normal enemy. This is a dude we've been fighting the entire time we've been here, pretty much. And then for some reason he becomes a boss with a ton of HP. But it's hilarious because the boss I was just on took me ages. It took me like 3 hours. This boss was a first attempt. Because that's the distinction, that's the power shift between a boss that has almost nothing going for it that's difficult to dodge, and a boss that does. And then speaking of a shit boss, so we're now playing as Adol on our own in this Colosseum, and we're taking on this creature that actually has a much harder time hitting you than you do hitting him. And the only difficult part of this fight, guys, is that when he turns around, his model can push your model with collision and push you into those AoEs on the ground. That's the only problem here. This is one of the easiest bosses in the game. It's an absolute joke of a fight compared to what we've been doing, but if it pushes me onto one of those circles, I take damage, and there's almost nothing I can do about it, except for move out of the position, and if I move out of position, I can't attack him. Like, this boss is so crap that the only thing that's even risky for some people is that spinning move, but if you stand at the bottom left corner where the drawbridge is, he can't even hit you. But I don't need to because I can guard it, because this shit's easy. Compared to the bird, compared to that bloody squid, I can do this all day. This is nothing. This guy, absolute joke. And this guy too, this guy's a joke as well. So, this is an optional boss that you can take on at any level. I only found him quite late, I don't know what time you're supposed to take him on. And I killed him when I wasn't recording because I didn't believe that he would be as retarded as he is. And all I did, guys, is I stood in front of him and he stamps his foot and you guard it. and then I attacked him, and then he stamped his foot, and I guarded it. And I just did that for 5 solid minutes, and he died. I couldn't believe that if you stand in front of him, he repeatedly just steps on you, and that's all he does. So when it came to reloading my save and recording this fight, because I didn't want to just stand in front of him and have him keep stamping on me like the goddamn ancient dragon from Dark Souls 2, I came up with a strategy that was a little bit more interesting to show you some of his moves. And the gist is quite simple. You can block his shockwave and get a nice flash guard off it, and then proceed to beat him up, or you can do this to just block everything and get max damage and keep filling your extra gauge. But at a distance, he likes to breathe fire, but if you run towards him, he can't do anything, so you get free hits on him. You can literally, if you don't want to guard anything, you can run away from him, bait the breath, and then swoop in and punish the breath, and then just repeat, and that's all he'll do. And it makes him even easier than when I stood in front of him and just parried his foot. So, he's a truly unexceptional boss. Be careful of that move has an active hitbox. His head will have gone all the way around and he'll still hit you at the other side. It's one of those shockwaves that doesn't make sense. But you get something for doing that. I think you get like an extra move for somebody. And then we have the dragons, which is the second part of the game. This is a super cool fight, this one. It's really interesting, and I found a sexy way to break it. So if you've ever had a problem with this fight, you're going to love this particular piece of gameplay. At the beginning, the dragon is invincible. You can't hurt him, you have to break his feet. Once you break all his feet, he's going to lay his head up here. You get 1 attack on his head, and then he does like a turning stun. On the turning stun, you can actually parry it if you time it. But it doesn't hurt you. And then he turns back over here, and he proceeds to do a handful of moves. I'm going to showcase a strategy here where you don't have to guard any of them, but you can. And when you guard, you do even more damage. I didn't want to do too much damage here though, guys, because I didn't want to trigger the second phase too quickly. When you trigger the second phase too quickly, you can't do the extra stun the way I'm going to do it and get the kill the way I'm going to do it. And it actually goes wrong on this run. The setup I've got to kill this guy really quickly. This move right now, if you do not kite those projectiles away from where you want to stand, they will put those thorn brushes into the platform, and if you touch them, you take damage. That breath move just then is really active, so if you want to use your extra move, you can get your extra move back by just spamming guard against that. And then down here, we can proceed to jack with his feet. 2 things I haven't mentioned, guys, that I really need to talk about, that if you've played this game, you'll probably already know, but if you haven't, you won't. The 2 characters I'm using right now, Mustafar and Sigrun. Sigrun has a move that's inherited by Aisha, which is called Aqua Burst. It's the most powerful move in the game, in my opinion, because it hits tons of times, it does good damage, it's very fast, it's very spammable, and it builds extra meter like almost nothing else. That's all I'm going to use with that character, it's that powerful. And Mustafa, he has this ability called Dragon's Blaze, which is a very slow, very heavy hitting move you're going to see me use on the next dragon. He also has a really powerful extra move that does incredible damage. So, whenever I play as those characters, it's to exploit those particular techniques. This is where this gets interesting. So the second phase, he chases you around this circle like it's Majora's Mask, but if you press your extra move the moment he lands, you can do a full ultra on his face, and if you're lucky right now, you can do enough damage to finish him off, but I didn't, so I have to dodge his moves and then use Aqua Blast. Watch my extra gauge, by the way. Whenever I use this move as this character with the bow, watch what happens. Additionally, if you hug this left-hand wall, the only things that can hit you are some of the projectiles when they get obscene tracking. Everything else the boss will miss. If you time your rolls correctly to do fast rolls, he'll never hit you. And then that's the end of him. That actually only took about 30 minutes to develop that strategy. That was a really fun fight. That's probably my favourite dragon. And then this is probably my least favourite dragon. But it doesn't mean he's bad, it just means he has a lot of active hitboxes that get you hit when you shouldn't get hit. So, I'm playing as Mustafa. That was Dragon's Blaze, did you see it? So the reason that Dragon's Blaze is so good here is it goes through geometry, so I can hit all of his limbs. Watch what this hits. It hits both his arms and his leg. Did you see the damage that just did? The jumping move he's doing there, guys, is a stun. It will stun you, and it makes it really difficult to recover, so be very, very careful. That move just then is probably the most awkward move he has. You can parry the feet, and you can spam parry the breath, but if you move out of the way of it, you don't have to gamble, and gambling can be really, really bad. But when you get the stun, look at the damage I just did. Did you see that damage from Mustafa? So good, right? and he hasn't even gone into his second phase, which he's doing now. So he lowers all the lava, and then if you sit down here, you can actually hit his foot with charge attacks, get all your SP back, and then when you come back up, you can do more Dragon's Blazes. But the thing you don't want to see is the projectiles. This is the rush. This has a very early hitbox. He will hit you before he's even close to you, and it's super bullshit. But once you get used to it, it's really easy to defend. Here's his tail. His tail releases these patches of flame, and this is the move you don't want. You never want this move. This move is when this boss becomes a douche. It's a troll move. It's projectiles that follow you and force you into the flame panels on the ground. That's all this is. He never does this either. This is such a rare piece of bullshit. You will never see him spam this move like he did just then. It's just the game trying to fuck me because I'm doing well. And I can't stand it. This is what you want. You want him to be aggressive. You want him to be physical. If he starts messing about with the fire, things get really dangerous. But here's another Dragon's Blaze. Make sure you can hit his head and both his arms. You'll do incredible damage. And then this is his buff. I'm going to swap to Sigrun now, and I'm going to run away probably. Because I always swap to her and then I run away. But because he went into this mode, I know that I'm safe to avoid it. So I just get into the hole and then fire some arrows at him. But if you go near him right now, guys, because he's covered in flame, he will hurt you by just sheer proximity. Here's the breath. That has a lot of range on it. Be very careful. And something you might notice too, which actually triggered me at the end of this fight. Do you see how my HP bar isn't full? When I swapped to the other characters, Mustafa got damaged. It wasn't me, because you've been watching, you know, I haven't taken a hit yet, thankfully. However, at the end of this fight, I was really happy I beat it. I looked down at the life bar, and I thought I'd taken a hit, so I immediately Alt F4'd, so I don't have the full cutscene of the boss dying, because I thought I'd fucked up. And then I watched the video back, and I was good. But that boss is really well designed, but he can be a troll. This boss is fucking garbage. This is the worst boss in the game by a large meter. This is just absolute abject dog shit, and I hate it. There's nowhere to move, there's nowhere to dodge, and this boss just summons mobs, and the mobs have all got moves that can hit you through animations, and you can't see anything because there's so many particles going on. Like, this is just garbage. And the strategy is really simple. If you stay in the corners, the boss can't hit you unless he turns his head, and if he turns his head, you dodge to the other corner. And then all I'm doing now, guys, is praying that I don't get tagged by these stupid genies. These stupid wind djinns. And I can't even begin to tell you how stupid this fight is. It's not fun, it's not interesting, it's just filler nonsense. Why does it exist? I couldn't honestly tell you. It's funny. When I first did it, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing on the planet, but no damaging it is just annoying. Because there's no skill to that. It's all about bullshit, and I hate bullshit. And then here's an optional boss. So, the optional bosses in this game are kind of terrible. I don't mean to mock the game, because I think that E7's a fantastic game. I love it a lot, and I recommend you play it, because it's a great experience. It's got a good story. But this fight has massive limitations. This boss has two moves. It can rush you, and it can do a tail whip, and that's all it can do. And additionally, if you stand in this corner, it can't ever hurt you. So all you have to do is stand in this corner and shoot it with your bow. It's boring, it's safe, it's cheesy, but it's a crap boss, and I don't really have problems shitting on crap bosses. And this is me showing you Aqua Blast, or Aqua Burst. Aqua Burst is so ridiculously powerful. His weak point's his tail, by the way, if you haven't noticed. It's just not a fun fight, guys, it's just kind of shitty. He's got a lot of HP too, 53,000 HP. I would recommend that you come back when you're like level 80 and just kill him in 3 hits or something. Just pentagram his tail twice and he'll probably die. You can guard all of these moves if you want to, but I wasn't taking any chances. But this character with the bow. Can you remember how I mentioned on my Ease walkthrough that a lot of people told me that Hummel was the most broken character in the game? He's really, really good damage, tons of good damage options, and you can do damage at relative safety. I don't agree with that. I think Hummel's very powerful, and I think he can be really cheesy, but I just don't see what people see in it. In this game, I completely agree. In this game, Aisha's character, the character with the bow, or Sigrun right now, there's no one that can do damage like this girl can do. No one can do this. She can hit from a greater distance than Hummel could ever pray to hit, and she does way faster DPS with that Aqua Burst. Like on easy or normal, if you've ever played the game on that, you can do 2 Aqua Bursts, or even 1, and completely fill an empty extra meter bar, because the meter build is so preposterous. And it's because of that, did you see the end of the move just then? The initial hit releases a ton of hits that all home in and hit. And because it hits so frequently, and because extra is built on repetitive attacks, it gives you 5 extra every time you use it. It's insane. It's absolutely insane, guys. And you might be wondering, Chris, what do you do to be able to do it like this? And it's not difficult at all. There's a side quest in this game where you have to find 7 Pickards that are lost. Once you do that, you get a Crimson Jewel, and it cuts your SP use in half, and it enables Aisha to become just a complete death dealer. There is one boss in this entire run where I'm going to play like a massive pussy, and it's the Water Dragon, because the Water Dragon does not have a checkpoint between 2 phases, and I really dislike that. So, because I couldn't practice the boss and I couldn't learn its moves, I ended up finding a safe spot and doing arguably the cheesiest, most ridiculously disgusting strategy you'll ever see, and I don't feel really proud of it, but if they'd give you a fucking checkpoint like they do in Ys 8, I wouldn't have to do it, but instead, cheese mode engaged, so look forward to that piece of dairy product. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, this is cheesy enough, this is a terrible part of the video, and it is! I'm not going to argue, this is a absolute shit fight. And afterwards you get a new limit break for somebody. But it's just unfortunate, isn't it? I love the bosses in Ys for the most. I think most of them really hit the mark. This is not one of them though. This is a really, really strange, how the hell did it make the game kind of boss. Maybe it has a redeeming feature, guys. If you like this boss, could you explain why? Because this... like, this boss has less moves than the doors in God Hand. It's crazy, right? But we've nearly stunned it, and when we stun it, we can hit its tail, and we should be able to finish it off, hopefully. There's another move, I think it's like a bee cutter or something like that. It's a waspinator or something. One of the moves that this girl has that does incredible damage and incredibly quick stun because it hits repeatedly. Dude, my damage is... there's no bueno on this tail. What's going on? So interesting, isn't it? That it could be so uninteresting. Because some of the bosses in this game, that fire giant in the flame dungeon, superb boss. The spider, outside of its ridiculous life, had some really, really cool features. Same with the bird, same with the octopus. This guy, nothing. But I think we're going to be the water dragon next. The water dragon is easily the worst boss in the game. The actual worst boss in the game, no trolling. The thing that's before the wind dragon is just silly. The water dragon is just objectively, I think, the shittest boss in the game. It's got some fun gimmicks, but when it comes to no damaging, it's just not fun. And then here's the final optional boss, if you're wondering. This is a worm. The reason why I'm not being really aggressive in getting close to this boss is because it releases these weird whirlpools that hurt you, and it's just not worth it. So the strategy is just run away, build SP as Sigrun, and then swap to Cruxie? I don't know how to say her name. Swap to this girl, and then cash it in with a nice dragon hit, or a limit break. Fun fact as well, guys, you can actually get criticals in this game randomly. If the final hit of her super criticals this boss, it does twice the damage it just did then. I pretty much killed this boss in one critical move when I wasn't recording, when I was just seeing whether or not it was a fun fight, which I can confirm it's not. It's another pretty shitty boss, but that one's got no HP, which is really kind. It's got good music though. The music in Ys is fantastic. Oh no, we're doing the wind boss! So this guy's kind of cool. This guy's really interesting. He has a lot of moves, and he has a lot of aggressive stuff, and if you get the right pattern, he's super good. If you get the bad pattern, he's an asshole. What you want to see here is you want to see chest spikes, and you want to see spin. If he does chest spikes and spin, it's great. If he flies, it's kind of awkward. So, on the flying phases, I like to be really defensive. I like to shoot it with the bow, and I don't push it because it can do moves really quickly, and it's easy to take damage here. What I'm looking for is a projectile. And if he does the forward projectile, it's awesome. If he doesn't, more power to us. If he lands like that, we'll just fight him, and then boom. I've never interrupted this move. Not even once. I don't even know how. I don't know if you can. But the good news is, look at that extra meter. The easy way to tell when this is going to dissipate, because you're going to need this for the next dodge, look at the top, see how it faded out then, and then dodge immediately, and he will not get you with his stupid Hoover move. wait for the top of the green to fade away, and that's when you know you can dodge out of the beam and then dodge away from him when he tries to cuddle you. Chest spikes. Gotta love the chest spikes. Look at this move, by the way, guys. All I'm doing, parrying, aqua burst. Parrying, aqua burst. You see this fucking move? It is so crazy. And then I swap to Cruciate because I want to use her. Boom. Are we going to Dragon Blaze him? Oh no, we're going to do Catastrophe. So watch the damage. I should have waited till he was stunned. Oh my goodness, did you see that? So much damage. I love this girl so much, dude. She is so powerful. And then he flies again. And he's either going to do sideways projectiles, forward projectiles, or he's going to land. And if he lands, that's what we want. The problem is, though, when he lands, he likes to run away from you. And when he starts running away from you, the camera moves and it becomes kind of weird to see what he's doing. But immediately he goes for the laser, but we kill him. He's a really fun dragon, him. He's one of the... probably the easiest dragon, I think. And I know a lot of people might disagree with that, but that's just how I feel. And then now we have the worst one. So... at the very beginning, guys, you want to use your charge shot and you want to use aqua burst in tandem together. I'm saving my extra move for the second phase because the second phase is awful. It's also worth adding that I like this boss a lot. I just hate the fact there's no checkpoints between two separate boss fights. And every time I get to the second phase, I take a hit, I have to do this shit phase to get to it. And it just takes too long and frustrates me a lot. But... the boss will always come on the left-hand side of this cave. He will always come through this entrance here, and then he'll shoot his eye lasers at you, which you can bait and dodge. Then do you see his body parts that we were shooting at previously? Every time you break one of the nodules, it will take off a massive chunk of the boss's life. The boss can then shake back and forth, which will hurt you if you touch it. He can also fire projectiles at you if you're in the wrong spots, and he can make the cave in a little bit and make rocks drop from the sky. The only thing that's a threat here is touching his body. If you touch his fins at certain points, which are essentially this fin that's above me just now, you know, just to my right where my team is, if I touch that, I will take damage from it. And it makes getting past his fins really difficult to do unless you get some kind of magic guard into an evade. So you're going to notice I'm not moving much further forward than I am now. The only problem with this is it makes it difficult to hit some of the parts I need to hit, and in truth just then, I was able to move forward a damn sight more than I was, I just didn't realise at the time. And here he comes again firing lasers from the opposite side. But wherever those spikes are, you can go all the way up to them, but if you get anywhere near them, they hurt you. So right now, I have at least a good 2 meters that I can keep pushing forward. But you'll notice, I can hit this if I go forward a little bit, so I'm just going to dwindle it down a little bit here and there. And what you want to do, guys, is when you drop this boss to 1 HP, he will swim away, and then it will trigger the cutscene for the second phase. If you grab... if you go into your menu and you put on the Ares talisman, I forget the name of it, it's the one that gives you extra gauge, extra. This is the thing I can't touch, by the way. See that? That was very risky what I did just then. Right now, if you go in the menu like I'm doing, you can put the Ares talisman on. But I didn't on that particular one. However, you're going to see me in this one having it on, because that's what I wanted it to be. This is where the bullshit begins. So, if you stand where I'm standing right now, this boss cannot hit you. He can only hit you if you move ever so slightly to the left, or if his head is all the way over to the right, doing a very specific move. And you see this? This is when he's using his face to kind of corral the sea with his tentacles, and he shoots his eye lasers at you. But if you don't attack him, he doesn't shoot eye lasers, so you can just survive, and then you come over to this spot, and you proceed to shoot him with charge shots, and then hit him with your aqua burst. Right now, he's gone forward. This point, you can hit him if you move all the way to the other side of the screen, but then he can hit you. Where I'm standing, he can't hit me. So all that's happening right now is we're standing here while the extra meter goes up, and we're waiting for the boss to finish. Do you see Aisha walking into the wall? That's because my analogs are shitty. The only problem with this fight, the way I'm going to be showing you how to do it with this cheesy strategy, is that my analogs are so bad, I can't make them stand still, and there are times when Aisha fires in the wrong direction because my analog is telling it to do that rather than my hands, and it leads to some really awkward moments. This boss can actually freeze the lake, and then it makes it really slidey, and you have to put these ice shoes on, and at that time it gets a nightmare. But when he goes into the cave, swap out the Ares talisman for the water one, and then you want to start avoiding his lunges. So it's completely up to him which one he lunges from. He can also send these little buddies out to attack you while this is happening. You can parry these moves if you want to. but I just found it easier to just roll around this arena. One thing I need to tell you here, guys, is if you get hit, it's 1000% up to the boss. Like, there's times when I've got hit multiple times doing this, and then there's times when I've never got hit like just then. So when he screams, it's going to get rid of the water, so you can now put on your talisman if you want it. And then we're just going to keep shooting him from this perspective, hitting him. And then whenever he pushes us aside, if you run into this little corner here, he can't hurt you. And then you want to roll back up into position. There's the freeze. Put your feet back on immediately. Put the crazy spike feet. And that's him using his poison breath, but we can't see it. That right there is my controller failing me. Keep on shooting him. Keep on hitting him. And right now, just hug this crevice. Do not attack. If you attack, he'll hit you with his eyes. And sometimes, he'll hit you with his eyes just for a laugh, because it's super RNG bullshit. But once you do that, you can reset. That's him lunging out again. Keep on waiting for that extra. Keep safe. Don't risk it. Do not move away from this wall, guys, or he will hit you. Do you see that just then? That's a projectile that comes out of that hole, but it didn't come out of the hole because I'm hugging this wall. And the thing that's frustrating is I kind of like the patterns in this second phase, and there's some cool blocks for some of the stuff. But making one sloppy mistake and having to do the first form again is so frustrating that I did this. And I just don't feel bad about it because it's a shit boss. There's my controller fucking me again. So I missed my Aqua Burst. Right now, you need to be careful. Whenever he moves his head like this, if he does the backwards Ice Blast, it can hit you. So move to the right ever so slightly, and then move back into position. And then be really careful right now, because the water's pushing me away. This is the mechanic the game uses to make it so that you can't get too close to the boss. But as long as you're in this crevice when he starts waving his beard, you'll be fine. And there's only 1 or 2 hits left and he's no damaged. And I'm not proud of it, but if you give me shit, I'm going to give you shit back. Monkey see, monkey do. I can throw poo too. Fuck you. Worst boss in the game. Hate everything about that fight when it comes to no damaging it, with the checkpoints the way they are. However, design-wise, I think it's kind of cool. And then now we have the Moondragon. The Moondragon, super sick fight. Really, really cool. 2 phases, same life bar. Way, way easier. There's his rush move, so parry that. And then we're going to do the ultimate after it. Always nice. We're going to get it back, don't you worry. I'm probably going to swap to Aisha next, and then use her to get my move back. There he does the rush again. So this boss is essentially a keep away boss. It runs away from you and fires projectiles, and then every so often it gets really aggressive. In this first phase, I like to use Adol because I just felt like he was the most effective for it. And then in the second phase, I'm going to use my bow wielding babe because she's incredibly good. Here he comes with his charge again. Get your parries, get that extra back, and that's the end of the fight, of the first phase anyway. And now we get the second phase. So the second phase is a gimmick fight. You can only hit his tail, and he has some really mean moves. Moves that stun you when he jumps, moves that send shockwaves and all kinds of stuff, and you cannot go very far in the environment because it's really close quartered. And then his end phase is this super dangerous, really aggressive rushing mode. With a strategy I'm going to show you, we're going to control his AI, and we're going to skip the final phase. So what you want to do, guys, here is you want to be careful swapping because it can be a pain in the ass getting to the character you want in this game because it's fucking dumb. But attack his tail, then go back in front of him, bait the punch, go back, attack his tail, come back in front of him, bait the next punch, and if he does this, it's just gravy. This is the move you want. That's his crazy AoE. But once you're finished, go back in front, bait the punch, and if you do this, he will continually do the punch and he'll never jump around and do the awkward moves. Because he keeps wanting to punch you, and it's really slow and easy to get around, and that's all you do. Keep doing that till you stun him. If he gives you anything else, things get interesting, but if he gives you the charge move like this, it's a good pattern. He's giving us exactly what we want, because this is the biggest punish. And I'm just keep on building that extra meter, but save it for the end. Here he goes again for the punch, swing back around, shoot his tail, and then go back in front of him, bait the punch. And he just will keep doing this because he's dumb, and it's awesome. Because when he starts jumping, it gets really confusing. The camera, the AoEs, the stun, the flinch. It gets real dangerous real quick. There's a charge again. This is a perfect pattern right now. This is a perfect fight. The only thing that's going wrong is my execution on my damage. And then right now, hit him with everything you've got and then do your ultimate. After this, you should get enough SP back to spam Aqua Burst and finish him off. If you don't, you'll have to do the next phase, and the next phase has some of the more difficult moves. But I didn't need to because of the way that I moderated my damage and my stun, and I made it look really easy. That's not an easy fight, guys. This is an easy fight because it doesn't make sense. So this is the final location of the game, and to kind of emphasize that this place is like despair embodied, it sends these two dudes at us, and these dudes are just standard enemy guys who have 50,000 HP for no good reason other than shoot these dudes a lot. And my strategy couldn't be simpler. I'm going to run away and I'm going to show you why Aisha is the most powerful character in this game. Because she's incredibly capable, she builds SP and extra meter like nobody else, and she deals DPS like almost no one else can. She's incredibly capable and I love her. And that's one of the things I really like about Ys 7. I feel like a lot of the characters have uses. I feel like in Ys 8 it's really easy to not use anyone else. You can kind of pick one character you like and stick with them. And you can do that in this, but in this game I felt that each character played a role that I needed at some point and came useful for me. And I feel almost the same about Memories of Celceta. I feel like in Lacrimosa of Dana, they've kind of got to the place where they've made everybody so accessible and so useful that you kind of don't have to use anybody but the one you want. Whereas in this game, they feel like they're all very specific tools for very specific purposes, and I like that. And I'm sure you can do the same thing with Ys 8 if you choose to. There'll be somebody in the comments saying, oh, I used everybody, and that's cool. You know, I do the same. I try to use people. But I think the thing for me is, if it's the damage type thing, isn't it? If it's Pierce, I will use a Pierce character. If it's Slash, I'll use a Slash character, and so on. And in this game, you actually get a weapon that completely ignores all of that. It gives you both Slash Strike and Pierce all on the same weapon. In fact, you'll see me using that weapon. It's the ultimate weapon for Adol, and you farm it in this area by getting the Moonstones and the other, is it Titano Bones, I think it is, something like that. It's a bunch of the most precious resources. But this is another one of those kind of filler fights that, if all the bosses in Ys were like this, I don't think I'd like the series as much. As much as it causes me pain to fight against these bosses with these bullshit moves and these crazy active hitboxes, it does give it a lot of character, and they are very memorable. Like, I'll never forget that water dragon, but it's not for good reasons, unfortunately. Ooh, there it was, guys, Waspinator, to see that? That's a really cool move if you want to try and build some stun. It's one of Aisha's better stun moves, I think. Because she's good at building extra and she's good at building SP and damage, but I don't think her stun is all that much. If she had good stun, she'd be completely super broken. But here is Gaius, what is he called? Like, the Knight of Despair? This is a really interesting fight, this one, because he's incredibly aggressive, but because he's so aggressive, he can hit you with all kinds of really active hitboxes. You can stand in front of him and parry his 3-hitter and just keep wailing on him, but I came up with a kind of defensive on the back foot strategy that worked really well. The only problem with this is it can be super hard to see at times because of all the projectiles. And all you do is if you run away from him with rolls, he will either do the big slash like this, that you can parry and then damage, or he'll do the projectile like that, or he'll do the stinger into the final thrust. The reason that this is a good strategy, guys, is because it circumvents all these fast moves, it gives you free guards and free damage, it keeps you in a safe position, and the big kicker is, if you're struggling on this fight and you're not very good at flash guarding, you can continue to spam roll and you'll dodge all of these naturally. You can do this strategy without guarding a single time. There's only one part of the fight where I'm not too sure what you would do. Maybe you would have to use your extra move and get lucky, because this is the second phase now. Gaius is going to start using these clones, and he's going to have the ability in a moment, once we damage him enough, to teleport into the sky and come down like Virgil on top of you. And on that move, I'm just going to parry it. And the parry timing is one of the tighter timings in this fight, but all I do is I kind of watch for the moment he starts to descend, and then I press parry then. But you see him going to the middle, it means he's going to do it, so I stand still, boom, boom, and there you go, perfect guards. And then here's the 3 clones. Keep building up your charge shot. There's his stinger into the final hit that has incredible range. Never ever try to get away from that on the same line as it, or it'll hit you every time. Here he comes again with a charge move. Get the guard. Punish. Keep building your stun. And be careful when you stun him, guys. I actually got a failed run where I stunned him, but he had already made a clone, and as I was beating up on him and it was all hectic, his clone continued his attack, and it hit me. It was really frustrating because I nearly got this boss first attempt, which would have been beautiful because I don't do anything first attempt. I'm clinically retarded. But here is the Here's the stun, and this should be the kill. But be very careful, when it gets really hectic you can't see anything. And if he does a move, and he will, he'll kill you through that every day. Very tricky fight. And then we go from a very tricky fight to this. So this is annoying, is what I would say. Tia has 2 enemies with her that fire projectiles and all kinds of weird things. They also affect your movement, and then Tia does crazy bullet hell strategy bullshit. The best way of dealing with it is to guard the first hit and then use Cruci's extra move. Once you kill both of those pillars, you can then just keep a space from Tia, and your team are going to dunk her, and all you need to do is keep getting SP and keep hitting her. If you can finish this fight with another extra meter, or at least a full SP bar, you will be really helping the next sequence in this, because this is a boss gauntlet coming up. You have 4 bosses in a row, you take them all on with different members, and each of them is very challenging. This boss final area it's amazing. It's really good, cool, it's creative, but it's also super punishing too. So this team right now I think is the hardest one, because you don't have anybody that I've really used, and because I'm not confident in my ability with these characters, I found this one to be the most challenging. I'm going to use Dogi because he deals incredible damage. He deals so much damage. He's just really slow, so if you find yourself getting hit in recovery because you can't cancel into a dodge quick enough, it's just Dogi. Dogi's like that, man. When this boss puts its head in the ground, it usually opens its stomach, and if you time it, you can punch it before it opens its stomach and gets the timer, and it can give you an easier time of interrupting it. Because interrupting this boss with this team can be kind of tricky. And I'm just going to be using that move that's worth 100 points that you keep seeing me use. It's so powerful and it's so useful, and if you do it correctly, you can deal some serious damage to this boss and kind of avoid the final phase, because when all the head starts coming down at the same time, this fight gets really confusing and really difficult to dodge. But here it is, Grand Slam. Grand Slam does incredible damage, it's a great move. And then the boss opens up its torso and it's going to fire that active projectile. You can do the guard into attack, into cancel guard, into attack, into cancel guard against this projectile, up against the boss. The Japanese speedrun for this game on Nightmare uses that tech, which I wish I would have watched before I played the game, because I would have totally stole it. Because I ended up discovering it on the fight with Adol coming up. That's the end of the first phase. A lot of people seem to think that phase is easy, but I had a lot of trouble there. I thought that was tough, so good luck with that one. And then this phase, everybody seems to think this is the hardest phase. I thought this was the easiest phase. But that's just because I really like Aisha, and she's super capable. But fun fact, do you see Gaius who's wailing on the boss? His triangle move right now has incredible stun on it, so if you just want to do maximum efficiency and stun this boss repeatedly, he is definitely your go-to guy. My strategy though involves using movement, because I really like spacing in this game. Because flashguard isn't as good here, I don't have to feel pressured to use it all the time, so you're going to see me use a lot of movement in this encounter. And I'm going to be kiting a lot of those projectiles that the hands do, and then just repeatedly building my SP so I can use Aqua Burst. That move right there, if you're close to the boss, it will hurt you with the build-up of that projectile. This right here generally generates both saws and tornadoes depending on which move he does. If you want free extra, just use that as an opportunity to parry those. It's really easy to parry them because they're super active, but I didn't need to. I was confident that in the next phase the extra wasn't going to help me enough to be necessary to need it immediately, because you have to fight those pagodas for ages, those like monoliths that you have to break. I knew I was going to be hitting them a ton anyway, so it wasn't imperative. But once you stun this, keep getting your SP, keep using Aqua Burst, and then feel free to finish it off with an extra move, because she earned it, so she might as well use it. And then there's really not too much left to this boss. He's going to suck you in a moment though, so you need to be really careful with your guard here. If you miss this guard, it gets real scary, but afterwards, you should be able to kill the boss, because he's still kind of vulnerable. The camera pulls in then, and you can't see much, but you can still attack, so feel free to keep attacking. And then we have the final boss, guys, in the end of the video. So this is the final phase of the Root's End. This is probably one of the easier phases, but to no damage this is really annoying, because At the beginning, I was parrying everything, I was doing all the cool shit, I was really feeling myself, and then 4 hours later, when I'm sick to death of doing this and I want to die, I started playing a lot safer, because I didn't need what the parries give me, I didn't need extra moves, they wouldn't have helped, and I didn't want to be risking that much and then making a stupid mistake. I love this boss, but I hate this fight when I was doing it. I was really frustrated. The only thing that's difficult in this first phase, in my opinion, is what I did just then. The dodge on that green projectile or the parry is a little bit more particular than the things you're used to. And then everything else is just standard bullet hell, and I'm kinda good at that stuff. The big advantage in this fight is I know how to guard everything. The biggest disadvantage in this video is you're not going to see me do that, just purely because I was so beaten down and I didn't want to risk it. But this move right now, if you wait for it and parry it, it will raise you into the sky, and once you've got to the top, if you press B and roll off it, you can get a ton of extra, and you can get a perfect guard off, and it's super easy. You will never take damage. It's a really fun strat. Same with the laser. The laser's a great opportunity to build extra, but I knew I wouldn't need it because I would be attacking these creatures for so long, it wasn't a big deal. That move right there, you can parry those in sequence if you want to, or you can run to the side of them. There's the curse laser, and then once we finish this guy off... A couple of things to know there, guys. When you kill those towers, it interrupts the boss's animation, so you can use it to cancel the moves you don't like, but it does not interrupt the pillars. If the pillars do lasers, the lasers will still be there when you get control after the cutscene. And then we have this phase. If you get a good boss pattern here, and the boss spams lasers, this is the easiest phase on the planet. If you get a bad phase, he'll do that triple projectile that's really tricky to avoid. Additionally, if you have a turbo controller, every time this boss does boss lasers, you can just get a free extra off it, because you will get so much XP, it's not even funny. So much extra, sorry. And then same with this, you can parry the tits off of that if you want to, but I'm going to be playing very safe here, guys, because I got so fed up with this. And then he does all the fun moves, like this is an easy parry, I can parry this in my sleep. Am I going to try? Fuck no, because I'm too nervous. I'm going to mess up. And then this is an easy parry too, but for some reason I miss it all the time, so I dodge it instead. There's no reason to dodge this, you should just parry it, but I was so tilted, it wasn't even funny. And then he's going to do the big laser. So right now, this is me pressing the trigger for everything I've got, because if I can fill my extra gauge, I've won and I've finished this project. If you watch the Japanese guy on that speedrun, he's pressing the button almost twice as fast as I am, and it proves there's no planet that he put it on a trigger, because you can't press the triggers that fast. He's either tapping a single button really quickly like a beast, or he's using a turbo controller, because he gets twice the amount of extra meter that I do. It's absolutely insane, but it's really fun to watch, so good for him. Shout outs to that guy. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That was every boss fight in E7 on the hardest difficulty while taking no damage. That's hard to do, but I had a lot of fun, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching. I know ease isn't big on my channel, people don't really care. That's fine, but I love it, and if you love it too, and I've somehow enabled you to love it with me, then that's just fantastic. Spreading the ease love, every new player at a time. So thank you for watching, and as always, you take care now.